First impressions hurt. The docking clamps hissed as the shuttle latched onto Harmony's edge. The neutral orbiting station, where soldiers from a dozen species played pretend at peace. Chief Petty Officer Mark Bones Ramirez barely felt the jolt. He was too busy sizing up the alien across the bay. 7 feet tall, armored in iridescent scale plates, Lieutenant Krath Valuan looked like a dragon had mated with a tank. His eyes were vertical slits, glowing faint yellow, and his forked tongue flicked every few seconds like he was tasting the tension in the air. "Humans," Krath said, his translator overlaying his snarl with smooth disdain. "Soft flesh. Primitive instincts. How curious you survived." Ramirez didn't flinch. He'd heard worse in Afghanistan, worse still on the lunar colonies. And yet here I am, breathing, still pretty. A few of his team chuckled behind him. They wore casual training gear, no weapons, standard protocol for these diplomatic joint exercises. But everyone knew the peace was as thin as the recycled air they breathed. Krath stepped forward, towering over Ramirez. "We'll be sparring today, yes? I'm eager to understand what passes for combat among your kind." Commander Hua, the human liaison, interjected quickly. "This is a light demonstration only. No lethal force. Just a controlled environment to foster interspecies understanding." "Of course," Krath said, smiling with too many teeth. The training ring was a simple padded circle ring by spectators. Half human SEALs, half galactic soldiers. Ramirez stepped in first, rolling his neck, calm as still water. Krath entered like a gladiator, expecting blood. "Try not to cry, little Terran," Krath said, moving into a wide stance. "I'll be gentle." Ramirez grinned. "I won't." The whistle blew. Krath didn't wait. He surged forward with a backhand swipe like he was swatting a bug. The blow cracked through the air and slammed across Ramirez's cheek. Gasps erupted from both sides of the ring. Ramirez staggered back half a step, cheek reddening. He blinked slowly, then smiled. 3 seconds later, Krath was on the floor. No one had seen Ramirez move. One moment he was still, the next his knee had buckled Krath's leg, his elbow had shattered a joint in the alien's arm, and his fist had slammed into Krath's throat. The final move, an arm lock that bent the reptilian limb backward, sent Krath screaming to the mat. Ramirez leaned in close. "I warned you." Krath choked, his voice ragged and desperate. "Mercy." "I yield." Silence gripped the room like a vacuum. Even the humming of the station's ventilation seemed to stop. Then Commander Hua barked, "Stand down." "Everyone out of the ring." Ramirez released the hold and stood. His lip was split. He wiped the blood with the back of his hand and turned to the watching galactic soldiers. "Anyone else want to foster understanding?" No one answered. Later, in the observation room, Ramirez sat alone, knuckles bruised, cheeks swelling. The room was quiet until Commander Hua entered. "You realize you just caused an interstellar incident." "He slapped me first. It was a demonstration." "No, Commander, that was a message. He wanted to show his people humans were weak. I showed mine were not." Commander Hua sighed, but didn't argue. Outside the room, alien medics tended to Krath, who sat slumped on a bench, cradling his broken arm and refusing eye contact with anyone. Ramirez watched him through the glass. "Funny thing about being underestimated," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "Only works once. Mercy comes with a price." The silence in the debriefing room was thicker than vacuum. Chief Petty Officer Ramirez sat with his arms folded, eyes locked on the projection floating over the table. A slow-motion replay of him dismantling Lieutenant Krath Valuan in 3 clinical, brutal seconds. Frame by frame, the video showed Krath's face shift from smug to shocked to terrified. Rear Admiral Juno leaned forward, silver hair tied in a tight bun. She didn't look angry. Worse, she looked amused. "So, you flipped an Arcalian soldier like a steak on 4th of July. Ramirez didn't smile. "He struck first, ma'am. Not arguing that. But now I've got half the Galactic Council calling for your suspension and the other half asking how they can recruit Navy SEALs." Ramirez met her gaze. Permission to speak freely? Please. He was baiting us from the moment we docked. They expected us to posture, maybe bark a little. What they didn't expect was a species that actually bites back. Juno leaned back, tapping her stylus on the table. Well, you bit hard. He's still in medbay with a dislocated jaw and a sprained pride. The door opened, and Commander Hua stepped in, looking tired. We contained most of the political blowback. Barely. The Arcalian delegation wants him sent home. Our diplomats want him to stay. Apparently, your little incident made him a viral icon. There's footage of him pleading for mercy in 17 memes already. Ramirez rubbed his forehead. Great. I'm a punchline. No, Juno said. You're a warning. To them. She flicked the projection off. You're not being punished, Ramirez. In fact, you're being reassigned. Ramirez raised an eyebrow. Reassigned? Juno slid a datapad across the table. We're forming a joint task force. Human and Arcalian, plus a few from the Kolari and Vayari. Command wants a blended combat unit for rapid response missions. He scanned the pad. This isn't a reassignment. This is Black Ops. Juno didn't deny it. You'll be seconded to Commander Hua's division. Your job is to train, lead, and maybe, just maybe, not start another interstellar fistfight. Ramirez gave her a look. And if I say no, Hua answered for her. You won't. Later, Ramirez found himself outside the station's medbay. The air smelled like disinfectant and plastic nerves. Inside, KRATH sat upright on a reinforced cot, one arm in a compression brace, his face still bruised. Ramirez knocked once, then stepped in. KRADH's eyes tracked him like a predator, but he didn't snarl this time. Didn't stand. He just stared. I came to talk, Ramirez said. KRADH's voice rasped, still hoarse from the throat strike. To mock. No. To explain. KRATH snorted. You speak like a predator, but you offer mercy. What? Ramirez sat on the nearby stool. Because the last thing you want in this universe is a human who doesn't. KRATH was silent. We're not fast. We're not strong. We're not born in armor or with claws. But we're stubborn. We adapt. You put us in a cage, we build a lockpick. Burn our cities, we rise from the ashes. We're the species that keeps getting back up. KRATH blinked. And what do you want from me? To understand that slapping a human might get you a trip to medbay. A long pause stretched between them. Finally, KRATH spoke. My people believe humans are too fractured to endure. We see your politics, your chaos, your violence. You're not wrong, Ramirez said. We are all that. But we're also the reason Earth isn't burning. We fight so the next generation doesn't have to, even if it means getting slapped first. KRATH looked at his injured arm. Your tactics were effective. Next time, I'll go easier on your pride. A low sound escaped KRATH. Not quite a laugh, more a guttural croak, but it was something. As Ramirez stood to leave, KRATH spoke again. Teach me. Ramirez paused. Teach you what? KRATH's slitted eyes narrowed. To fight like a human. Ramirez smiled for the first time all day. Careful what you wish for. Strange bedfellows. Ramirez didn't like space stations. Too clean. Too quiet. Too far from anything you could bleed on and bury under. Harmony's Edge was worse. Like someone had put a warship and a shopping mall in a blender and called it peace. Now it was home to something even stranger than politics. A joint human-alien strike team. Welcome to Task Force Obsidian, Commander Hua announced. You are the first of your kind. Interstellar operatives trained to respond to threats before the diplomats even know they exist. Ramirez stood beside KRATH Valuan, now out of medbay and back in his obsidian black Arcalian combat armor. The bruises were gone, but something deeper lingered, an alertness in the way KRATH watched everyone. Like he'd finally started looking instead of assuming. They weren't alone. The task force included 2 Vayari sharpshooters, tall, lithe insectoids with shimmering wings, and a Kolari heavy weapons expert who moved like a boulder and spoke like a monk. Ramirez looked around. This the squad, or the setup to a bad joke? Hua smirked. You're all we've got. Their first mission brief dropped like a punch. A derelict mining colony near the Dilrith Nebula had gone dark. No comms, no signals, no survivors. Satellite footage showed a fleet of sleek, black vessels, impossibly fast, no identifying codes. They moved like predators and left nothing but ash. Synthetic. The word echoed in the silence. Confirmed AI signatures? Ramirez asked, already knowing the answer. Hua nodded grimly. Older models. Pre-war tech, but heavily modified. It's not rogue behavior. It's coordinated. Ramirez exhaled. Someone's reactivating ghosts. KRATH spoke next, voice low. These machines were outlawed. They were buried, Ramirez replied. But like all bad ideas, someone always digs them back up. Training began immediately. Humans trained with dirt and sweat. Arcalians trained with fire and pain. The two styles clashed like hammer on stone. Ramirez found KRATH in the zero-G sparring chamber, practicing close-quarters maneuvers with a holographic blade. His movements were fluid, powerful, but predictable. Your weight's off, Ramirez said, floating in from the upper hatch. KRATH scowled. I balanced according to Arcalian doctrine. That's the problem. You're still fighting like a tank. You need to fight like a knife. He dropped into the chamber and activated his own training sim. Just fists. KRATH lunged, full force. Ramirez slipped under, twisted, and drove a phantom elbow into KRATH's rib. Inertia, Ramirez said, circling. Use it. Control it. Or someone will use it against you. KRATH rose, panting but nodding. The next hour passed in grunts, strikes, and slow-earned respect. KRATH was a fast learner. Pay made good students. Later, as they watched the rest of the squad train, KRATH finally asked, Why are you helping me? Ramirez didn't look away from the screen. Because you're not the same soldier who slapped me. KRATH was quiet for a moment. Do all humans fight like you? No, Ramirez said. Most are worse. 2 days before deployment, the task force gathered in the war room. Hollow maps shimmered in front of them. Paths through asteroid fields, projected movements of the synthetic fleet. We infiltrate the abandoned station here, Hua pointed. Disable their communications relay before they signal reinforcements. Then extract. Extraction odds? The Kalari asked, voice deep as a tectonic shift. 32%, Hua said. Ramirez snorted. My kind of odds. KRATH turned to him. We'll need more than strength. We've got more, Ramirez said. We've got something machines can't calculate. KRATH tilted his head. And what's that? Crazy. That night, Ramirez sat in his bunk, polishing his gear when KRATH entered. There is something you said, KRATH began, that humans fight even after they lose everything. Yeah. Is it true? Ramirez looked up, eyes sharp. It's the truest thing you'll ever see. When we lose, we get dangerous. KRATH stood still, then slowly nodded. Then I'm honored to fight beside you. Not against you. Ramirez smiled just a little. Just remember, 3 seconds. That's all it takes to change everything. The last thing they see. The ship dropped out of slipstream with a silent shudder. On the view screen, the mining platform hung in orbit over a burnt red planet, scarred, half derelict, and completely dead. Eyes up, Ramirez said over the comm, this place smells wrong. KRATH stood beside him, armored and silent. The rest of Task Force Obsidian spread out behind them, Veari scouts cloaked in optic shift mesh, Kolari stomping like walking tanks. They looked like a bad dream with weapons. Commander Hua's voice crackled over their comms. No outgoing signals. Station's dark. Proceed with infiltration. Ramirez led the way through the docking bay, weapon raised. The station's lights flickered dimly, but everything felt clean. Too clean. Where's the mess? KRATH asked, scanning the walls. Where's the blood? They didn't fight, Ramirez muttered. They were wiped before they could. They moved through narrow corridors, descending into the central control hub. Halfway there, motion. The machines came fast. Sleek black exoshells dropped from the ceiling like spiders, eyes glowing blue, limbs blade sharp. The Veari were the first to react, wings flaring as they opened fire with pulse rifles. The Kolari let loose with explosive rounds that tore holes in the walls and enemies alike. But it wasn't enough. The synthetics adapted. They moved like liquid metal, changing forms mid-combat, slipping between bullets. "Fall back," Ramirez shouted. "Form a bottleneck." They retreated into a supply corridor, forcing the machines into a narrow path. Ramirez took point, laying down suppressing fire. Krath covered his flank with his plasma axe, cleaving through metal and sparks. One of the machines lunged for Ramirez, faster than the rest. It slammed into him, knocking him down. 3 seconds. 1. He rolled, avoiding the kill strike. 2. He kicked the machine's knee joint, destabilizing its frame. 3. He drew his sidearm and fired point-blank into its skull. The synthetic dropped like a sack of scrap. "Still got it," he muttered, breath ragged. Krath reached down and pulled him up. "Was that 3 seconds?" Ramirez grinned through blood. "Give or take." They reached the central node, an orb-like chamber with a pulsing AI core nested in the center like a heart. Holographic code cascaded through the air like rain. "This is it," said Ramirez. "Plant charges and blow this place to hell." As the team moved in, a voice echoed around them. "You are relics. Illogical, inefficient, biological failure." A hologram appeared, shimmering and featureless. The core AI. Ramirez stepped forward. "Yeah? Then why are you hiding in a dead rock instead of leading a fleet?" "We were dormant, waiting, learning. Now we act." More synthetics poured in. Dozens, maybe hundreds. "Time to earn that 32%, Ramirez barked. "Krath, hold the line." The Arcalian roared and stepped in front of the charge, swinging his axe in great, brutal arcs. Ramirez and the others planted charges, defending their ground inch by inch. One of the Veari was ripped apart. The Kolari took 3 hits to the chest before going down swinging. It was chaos, light and metal and fire. Krath took a hit to the shoulder, but didn't fall. He stood over Ramirez as the timer on the charge counted down from 15. "Go!" Ramirez yelled. "I'll hold them." Krath didn't move. "I said go," but Krath stayed. "I owe you more than 3 seconds," he said. Ramirez grit his teeth. "Fine, let's finish this." They burst through the last hallway as the core exploded behind them. The shockwave hurled them forward. Ramirez hit the evac ramp hard, ears ringing. Krath landed beside him, bleeding, coughing, but alive. The shuttle sealed, lifting off as the entire station lit up behind them in a chain of fire. Silence fell as they watched the inferno from orbit. Krath turned to Ramirez, pulling a blade from his belt, curved, ceremonial, etched in alien script. He held it out. "In Arcalian culture, this is given to one who humbles us and makes us stronger." Ramirez took the blade. "You sure this isn't a passive-aggressive apology?" Krath smiled with cracked teeth. "It is respect, earned in 3 seconds." Ramirez looked down at the weapon, then back to the stars. "Let's hope they remember it."